LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga is a huge game. Well, it is 2 games in one, and that means 36 levels, each with 10 mini-kits and a red brick to find, as well as a true Jedi bar to fill up. Not to mention that they each have a challenge level, which, in my personal opinion, I'm glad they never brought back, because I could do without being timed. I don't need that stress. Along with all of that are characters you unlock, whether it be from completing a level or buying it from the store. The characters are easily my favorite part of any LEGO game. After you get them all, you actually feel accomplished. Some of these characters are super helpful when completing levels, others are completely useless. And I am going to rank them all from worst to best. All of them. I'll rank them from various reasons, whether it be from how helpful they are when completing levels, how efficient they are when destroying enemies, or I might even rank them from how cool they look. Seeing that there are 128 characters in the game, including the custom characters, this is going to take a while, so there's going to be multiple parts to this list. You may be wondering, why am I doing this? Well, I have nothing else to do. I don't have a life to attend to or anything. This guy. This guy right here. He's easily one of my least favorite playable characters in any LEGO game, and that's not an exaggeration. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. All of the characters from here to number 119 don't really do anything or have a purpose. They're just there because they have to be. Droid is the worst out of them all, because not only does he not do anything, but he's slow. I mean, really slow. He goes like half the speed of Yoda without his lightsaber, and everyone who's played this game knows that Yoda without a lightsaber is slow. Now, I'll give credit where credit's due. The Super Gonk Extra does give the Gonkinator the ability to jump as well as move faster, but the fact that he needs an extra to do that says a lot, in my opinion. By the way, Super Gonk should have been one of those extras you got automatically unlocked in the store. Examples of extras like these are Extra Toggle and TOW Death Star. But no, you actually have to take the time to find the red brick in the negotiations level. That pisses me off so much. Man, dude, Pit Droid. When I bought LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga on Steam, the first thing I thought was, man, I'm so pumped to play everyone's favorite Star Wars character, Pit Droid. You know the one. The droid that got a 2-second cameo in The Phantom Menace, everyone's favorite Star Wars film. Seriously, Pit Droid? I honestly don't know what they were thinking when they made Pit Droid a playable character. I think they only put him in because a bunch of them showed up in a cutscene in the Mos Espa pod race level for a few seconds. They better regret putting him in the roster. I'll be honest, before writing the script to this video, I still had no idea what a PK Droid was, so I did some research. By the way, thanks Wikipedia for making me realize something. Take a look at PK Droid's Wikipedia page. If the character in question only has one paragraph of information on his wiki page, that shouldn't warrant a spot in the character roster, right? I'm assuming PK Droid is only a character for the same reason Pit Droid is, because he showed up in the negotiations level. The only reason why PK Droid is above Pit Droid is because PK Droid looks less trash, you know? Now that we're done with the droids that don't do anything, now it's time to get to the people that don't do anything, and I'm starting with Chancellor Palpatine. Now, you get him as a playable character in a story level. Think about that. A story level. They have the nerve to make this guy a character you can play in the Chancellor IMPERIAL level. I know it pretty much guarantees it because his name is in the title of the level, but they could have made him a moving NPC like Taun We in the Discovery on Kamino level. I won't complain about the fact that he's in the roster because Palpatine played an important role in the prequel trilogy and the Star Wars franchise as a whole, but still, he was in LEGO Star Wars for a minimal amount of time and the developers didn't make him seem as important as he was in, say, Revenge of the Sith. Like, for example, in Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine pressured Anakin into killing Dooku. In LEGO Star Wars, Anakin just did it like it was nobody's business. But, whatever, Chancellor Palpatine has no abilities and therefore sucks. I have a love-hate relationship with Boss Nass. On one hand, that shake thing he did in Phantom Menace was godly. But on the other hand, I don't really see how this guy didn't get as much, if not more, hate than Jar Jar. In any case, I don't really care for the character that much, and apparently neither did the developers. Like all the characters that were already featured on this list, he has no abilities at all. I have nothing more to say, so on to the next segment. I really have nothing against Taonui, but since she has no ability, she's kind of stuck in this early part of the list. Taonui was a moving NPC in the Discovery on Kamino level, as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Palpatine. It kind of sucks because characters in LEGO Star Wars couldn't fight if they didn't have a weapon, which I'm glad they fixed in later games. I will say this though, when you try to kill her in the outside area of Mos Eisley Cantina, she does not die. Try it for yourself, she's pretty much invincible. She just runs around like panicky. I guess you should have expected the other Kamino Inn to come right after the first one, and if you did, good job. I chose Lamasu over Taonui for a few reasons. One, his name is, I like it better. I know it's a dumb reason to prefer one character over the other, but Lamasu and Taonui are basically clones, so I'll take any reason I can get. Another reason that he looks cooler, with that collar of his. I think he's more pimped out than Taonui because he's the Prime Minister of Kamino, but well, whatever. Bib Fortuna. Like Taonui, I've nothing against him nor anything for him. He's just kind of there. I put him above the others listed so far because he's weird, but like the good weird. Look at those red eyes of his. Also, I did not know he was a Twi'lek. I guess if he unraveled the head tails, it would be more noticeable. Before now, I thought he was just a deformed guy, which wouldn't be hard to find in a place such as Jabba's palace. Speaking of Jabba, why isn't he a playable character? I know he shows up in like the bounty hunter missions, but come on. We're almost done with the useless characters. Next up is the Imperial Spy. His real name is Grindan. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Perhaps the thing that pissed me off the most about the Imperial Spy is that he was a boss. In the Mos Eisley spaceport level, you play as Han and Chewie and you follow this spy. He's not really a good spy if he's constantly being followed by a smuggler and his Wookiee, right? But at the end of the level, all he did was call in stormtroopers for you to kill. Then after about 3 rounds of that, he runs around while you shoot him 4 times. Good news, this guy is the last playable character that doesn't do anything, and I put him above the others for the sole reason that his name is so ridiculous. Ridiculously great. I love saying his name, Dexter Jetster. He wasn't even a playable character in the first LEGO Star Wars game. In LEGO Star Wars 1, the level hub was Dexter Jetster's diner, and he was a non-playable character. He was the equivalent of the guy with the orange shirt in the Mos Eisley Cantina in the complete Saga. They probably put him in as a playable character since you wouldn't see him otherwise. Finally, we're done with the characters that don't do anything. Now it's time to get to the characters that almost don't do anything, and I'm starting with TC-14. Sure, protocol droids have their own panel and you need them to complete quite a few levels, but that's about it. They can't jump, they can't attack, and they also move a lot slower than most other characters. Since there are only 2 different protocol droids as playable characters, I put TC-14 behind the other because TC-14 doesn't look as pimped out as the other, and the betrayal over BESPIN level, I think TC-14 seduced C-3PO. I realize that the silver protocol droid in that level probably isn't the same TC-14 due to the fact that there may be multiple droids to one series, and The Empire Strikes Back takes place about 30 years after the Phantom Menace, but I'll take what I can get. And alas, the second protocol droid is introduced, C-3PO. I pretty much explained most of my reasons for putting C-3PO over TC-14 already. Another reason why C-3PO is above TC-14 is because 3PO is also such an iconic character. TC-14 is just a cheap knockoff, but I'm not going to treat C-3PO like a god because I like him better than TC-14. He's still a protocol droid, he still sucks. He's a playable character in a lot more levels than TC-14, and he's pretty much a burden most of the time. Most levels that C-3PO is in, it involves some puzzle that requires you to get C-3PO from point A to point B so you can open some door with a panel. Of course, in free play, the puzzles become super easy. In fact, most aren't even puzzles at that point. Fortunately, there are characters way up on the list that once you buy them in the store, they make the two protocol droids basically pointless. Now we're moving on to the shorties. I realize shorty sounds stupid, but shorty is the actual term for short people in LEGO games. It's kind of amazing how far down one version of Boba Fett is and how high up on the list the other is. The reason why shorties are so low on the list is because they only serve one purpose, and that's to go through hatches. There are 6 shorties in the game, and 4 out of those 6 don't have any means to defend themselves effectively. Note the word effectively, but I'll get into that later. What? Excuse that. Oh, here he is, one of the many things people loved about the Phantom Menace, young Anakin Skywalker. The second shorty featured on this list, and probably the most beloved characters ever. I mean, who could deny this line?
Now this is pod racing.
But in all seriousness, his character sucked in the Phantom Menace, and many would agree with me. Anakin is basically just boy Boba Fett, but with another skin. He can't even throw punches. The only reason why he's above boy Boba Fett is because Anakin played a much bigger role in the Star Wars franchise.
But I want them alive. No disintegrations.
As you wish.
Now we're up to this little bugger. These guys are little dicks in The Empire Strikes Back, even though they show up for 1 or 2 scenes. Now, I lied. Some shorties do have means to defend themselves to an extent. Ugnaughts, along with the other shorty I'll get to next, have zappers that are meant to disable droids for a short amount of time. That's it. Nothing else. Nope. I hated these guys while playing the Betrayal over Bespin level. You don't even see them coming, and all of a sudden they disabled your droid. Those little bastards. The last shorty in this section, the Jawa. Now, these guys are probably worse dicks than the Ugnaughts, but I place Jawas above them because Jawas play a bigger role in the movies, at least a little bit. I mean, they're the ones who sold Luke the droids, right? Also, Jawas are more subtle with their dickishness. There was a whole scene where Ugnaughts, using 3PO's head, played a game of keep away with Chewbacca. Jawas are more sly with the crap they do. In the game, Jawas are the same deal as Ugnaughts. They run and try to disable your droid as soon as they see it, which pisses me off to no end, which is why I end up killing them very aggressively. Finally, the first character with a legitimate weapon, the battle droid. You cumulatively destroy about 1,000 of these when you try to 100% this game like I did. You get sick of them, I'll tell you that much. But they aren't that fun to play, to be honest. They can't even jump, and they don't have auto-aim. I'm not sure what the official term for auto-aim in this game is, but that's what I call it. Auto-aim is when characters lock onto enemies without necessarily needing to face them. Han Solo is a good example of a character who has it. Battle droids are not. A lot of enemy characters, like the battle droids and stormtroopers, need to physically face the enemy to be able to hit them. You can see why no one really plays as a battle droid, right? Oh, did I mention that there are 4 frickin' versions to the battle droid? No? Well, there are. The standard battle droid looks dull compared to the commander battle droid, even though the commander battle droid is still dull. He's just a regular battle droid but with a yellow torso. Nothing else. He's the exact same as every other battle droid in this game. He can't jump, he doesn't have auto aim, he sucks. Let's see how I stretch time for the remaining 2 battle droids on the list. Another battle droid. I chose the security droid over the other 2 because his torso is red, and red is my favorite color. That's pretty much the only reason. It doesn't look dull compared to the commander and standard battle droid because of the change in color, I guess. He's the exact same as the other droids in every other aspect. He can't jump, he doesn't have auto aim, yada 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 yada. Guess what? There's only one more droid to go over and we're finally out of the rut that is the stupid, shitty battle droids. Here's the last battle droid. I chose the GEONOSIS battle droid over the other for the reason that the other 3 battle droids were all the same, just with a different colored torso. The GEONOSIS rendition is a different color entirely. I'm probably making it sound like I'm moderately excited about this droid, but I'm not. He's just the most different. If you think I did a good job at finding redundant things to say about 4 different battle droids, rate, comment, and subscribe. It could be worse. Later in the list, I have to talk about Princess Leia 7 times in a row. Why the hell are there 7 versions of Leia? Now that we're done with the battle droids, it's time to cover the astromechs. There are only 3 in the game. This one is put as the worst astromech because one of the other astromechs is iconic and another just looks cooler. R4 is a filler character. A filler character is a character that is put in a level only because there has to be a minimum of 2 playable characters. LEGO games have always had co-op, so when there's a scene in a movie where only one person is involved, they have to put in another character for the little sibling to play. In R4P17's case, the Discovery on Camino level is the level where he's dumped in. I'd hate to be the little brother that is stuck playing an astromech while the older sibling plays Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know him, you probably love him, and he showed up in all 7 Star Wars films. That's right, it's R2-D2. He's placed above R4 for the reason that he's more iconic. Everyone remembers R2. R4P17 is just one number too long. Astromechs in this game can't necessarily fight, so you may be wondering why I placed them above the battle droids. Well, here's the reason. Astromechs can do so much more. The battle droids can just run and shoot their blaster. Astromechs have a specialized panel for them, and you need them to finish most levels. They can also disable droids for a short amount of time. There are more reasons, and I'll explain it in the next segment. I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure R2Q5 is less known than R4, but he looks cooler than R2 and R4 combined. He looks the exact same as the other astromechs, just with a different color scheme. Believe it or not, there are still more things an astromech can do. One thing is hovering. Astromechs can hover across large gaps to get to new areas. There are only 5 characters in the entire game that can hover, and 3 of those 5 are astromechs. Also, enemies don't attack astromechs, or any droid for that matter. The only characters that attack astromechs, and I use that term loosely, are Jawas and Ugnaughts. This guy is one of those characters that are only in the roster because he showed up as an enemy for 2 levels. I would have put an astromechs higher than GAMORREAN Guard, but I didn't because the guard can actually fight. Barely though. He just has an axe and he's just terrible. These guys made themselves look okay when you fought them in Jabba's palace and the sail barge levels, but that's only because they can block your attacks. But when you play them, they aren't anything special. They have no special abilities that make them useful or anything. These guys are on the same boat as the GAMORREAN Guard. I'll be honest, I have a little bit of a soft spot for Ewoks. Now, I know their role in Return of the Jedi is really stupid and these man-eating teddy bears don't deserve any recognition, but to be honest, they're better than Gungans. Generally, I mean. Ewoks are better than Gungans in general.
You should find a me now, today.
In this game, however, Gungans are better than Ewoks in terms of how useful they are. Ewoks are shorties, so that's good, I guess. I suppose you use those shorty hatches more often than having to use Jar Jar's high jump. Other than that, Ewoks are terrible for fighting enemies. They have a slingshot. Slingshot! At least in LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens, the Ewoks are given a bow and arrow. WCKET is just a characterized Ewok. They just recolored his hood from brown to red and called it a day. He possesses the same exact abilities as a standard Ewok too. You unlock WCKET after you complete the Battle of Endor level. No one played as him unless you absolutely had to. For example, there are several cases when you had to use the hatches in that level. To be honest, I'd rather play as Archer than as WCKET. But I still put Ewoks above the astromechs because they are able to fight. They can't fight well, but at least they can. I'll be honest, I don't know much about this gift card. I don't know a ton about a lot of characters on this list, really. Mostly because a lot of characters in this game don't do anything important, I should say. This gift guard is one of them. He's nothing special. He's basically just a stormtrooper with a different skin. Upon some research, I found out that despite him being named Skiff Guard in the game, he actually has a name. Spaghetti Rook. But I'll call him Spaghetti for obvious reasons. You gotta give props to George Lucas for giving names to pretty much everyone, even if they're an extra. Did you know that the Death Sticks guy from episode 2 has a name? His name is Elon Sleazebagano. Sleazebagano. You can't make this up, kids. Why isn't Sleazebagano a playable character? Someone should start a petition to request the LEGO Games to make an episode 2 DLC for LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens with the Death Sticks guy in it. Before we move on, I'd like to point out that while writing the script, apparently Death Sticks gets a red line under it, but Sleazebagano doesn't. What a world we live in. Jabba's variety in workers definitely has range, and by that I mean like 3 different characters. This is the Palace Guard. It looks exactly like Lando when he's in his Palace Guard disguise, as you might imagine. They may look alike, but the real Palace Guard fights like spaghetti over there. A ton of characters like these fight the same. By these characters, I mean enemies you face in levels and allies that you see in the background of levels. The designers didn't bother doing much to these characters because they know you'd be playing someone cooler like Darth Maul or Boba Fett. We hit the number 100 mark, and what else to celebrate than another generic enemy? I didn't even remember this guy until I had to go back to find him. I mean, I knew he was in Death Star levels because of the name, but I didn't recall fighting them. Turns out they're the douches that occasionally come out of the back door of the detention block at the end of the Rescue the Princess level. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's pretty much the only time you see them other than the level after it. Which would make sense, since there are only 3 levels that take place on the Death Star, and one of those 3 is a ship level. And I know they aren't on the Death Star too, so where else would they be? I'd rather have Ponda Baba as a playable character over these Death Star troopers. If you don't know, Ponda Baba is the guy that gets his arm cut off in the Mos Eisley Cantina in A New Hope.
We're wanted men. I have the death sentence on 12 systems.
I'll be careful.
You'll be dead!
This little one's not worth the effort. Come, let me get you something.
You may be wondering, who is Rebel Friend? Is he from the movie? The answer is no, he isn't. They just need another character for the Secret Plans level, which is the first level in the New Hope. To be honest, I don't know why they didn't just have this character be a regular Rebel Trooper. Why is his shirt red instead of blue? Is his rank above that of a regular Rebel Trooper? Is it like Star Trek and he's gonna die because he has a red shirt? Does he have some sort of disability? If not any of those, then why is this guy on the roster? They could have at least gave him a more professional name. Rebel Friend? What? Shouldn't all rebels be friends then? I would recommend a name like Rebel Commander or Rebel Ally or something that isn't Rebel Friend. Oh boy, Royal Guard. I gotta say, these guys sure look like they can protect royal figures. Look at that face. I've gotta say, these guys look nothing like they should. Here's the Royal Guard from the LEGO Star Wars, and here's an action figure that was based off of the Royal Guard from the actual movie. I think the developers thought no one would notice, but I did. I see clear through your ruses, Traveler's Tales. These guys are first seen in the Escape from Naboo level, and they look like complete idiots when they can't even take out simple battle droids. Look at these doofuses. You really want those guys protecting your Queen of Naboo? In fact, you have to save these guys from battle droids in the Retake Theed Palace level. They can't even protect themselves. These guys are above the Rebel Friend only because their name isn't complete malarkey. I would have put Rebel Friend and Rebel Trooper side by side on the list, but Rebel Friend is stupid and unneeded, so he was put behind the blasphemous Royal Guard. There isn't really that much to say about the Rebel Trooper. Like I said, it would have made more sense if Rebel Trooper was in the place of Rebel Friend in the Secret Plans level. The only possible reason why they put Rebel Friend in is because they would want a perfect rectangle for the roster. If you get what I'm saying. Like, the roster's a perfect rectangle and there isn't like any loose ends. If that makes sense. I got a visual up on the screen, you'll probably know. If it was up to me, I'd take away Rebel Friend and put in Ponda Baba instead. If you can't tell, I want to play Ponda Baba, either him or a custom character. I just really want to play with his one arm. Ah yes, the Rebel Pilot. The generic looking white man in an orange jumpsuit. I wouldn't be surprised if he had went to prison in the past. I mean, look at his face. He looks like he learned to not drop the soap the hard way. The thing that I like about LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens game is that they have a name for literally every single character, even if they had nothing to do with the plot. That being said, this guy would probably be higher up on the list if he was named Dak Rolter. You know, the guy who died in the Battle of Hoth. You know what? On second thought, scratch that. If every extra got a name, that means Spaghetti's name would show up on the roster, so no thank you. This should be titled Rebel Extravaganza because all but 2 characters in this episode so far are Rebel characters. Don't worry though, this guy is technically the last Rebel character. Generic Rebel character, I should say. Leia is considered a Rebel, right? In any case, I really have no reason to put the Hoth Rebel Trooper above the others. I guess it's because they look the most different. They also have a huge ass blaster instead of a dinky little one. The Hoth Rebel Trooper is the exact same as the other Rebel characters in every way except the look and the weapon. Yes, even Rebel Friend is capable of shooting a blaster. Another generic character from the background. I really have nothing to say about the Bespin Guard. He has a blaster. That's about it. I mean, he can go up grapple points. I will say that I kind of like this guy's run cycle along with his double jump and punching movement. If only every character had cool motions like that. These guys look a lot more trustworthy compared to the Royal Guards. Like I said, the Royal Guards look like idiots. The Bespin Guards look only a little bit of idiot. I'd rather want the Bespin Guard protecting the Queen of Naboo, especially if that queen is Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman is hot, dude, like really hot. I guess I put the standard Wookiee above the others so far because I like Wookiees, mostly because of Chewbacca. I mean, everybody likes Chewbacca. In fact, when I heard rumors that he was going to die in Force Awakens, I was outraged. Thank God that wasn't the case. But seriously though, look at this part in the trailer. Rey looks like she's crying over a furry person's body. I seriously thought that would be Chewbacca. I'm still not happy about who died instead, but, you know, I spent the majority of the segment talking about how I thought Chewbacca was going to die even though he didn't. To be honest, it's because there's really nothing special about the Wookiee. He fights and acts exactly like Chewbacca, which I expect. Look at this dopey ass, no good ass, useless ass clone. The clone is nothing special. His run cycle is stupid and so is everything else about him. The thing that pisses me off the most about these guys is that the Disarmed Trooper Extra applies to these guys, which makes no sense. The fact that the Disarmed Trooper Extra applies to yourself is dumb. The extra replaces Troopers' blasters with carrots so they can't shoot you. That's cool and all, but it should only apply to enemy stormtroopers in my opinion. In fact, the clones are your friend in Attack of the Clones, so what's the deal? The Disarmed Trooper Extra shouldn't even apply to them. If you want to play as the clone, you either have to 1. Disable the Disarmed Trooper Extra, or 2. Keep the extra enabled and hope that the Reflect Bolt Extra does the work. Don't mess with the Sand People. I'm sure millions of other people made the joke about Tusken Raiders being ISIS, but I'm not going to go there, because I would, but the joke has been made. There isn't much to say about the Tusken Raider. This game made them look like deformed guys with surprised faces. I guess they were a pain in the Through the Junlin Waste level, especially when you're playing it for the first time. They keep sliding down the sandhill while you're trying to construct a walkway. And the pubescent Anakin in Attack of the Clones kills a bunch of them after his mom died.
I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead.
Also, they tried killing you with boulders in the Mos Espa Padres level, so I guess they deserve to die. Maybe. This version of the clone is the exact same as the Episode 2 clone, just with cooler armor. Unfortunately, the Episode 3 clone is the same deal as the standard clone regarding the Disarmed Trooper Extra. They are affected as well. It does make a bit more sense for the Episode 3 clone since they turn on you in the Defense of Kashyyyk level, but still, for the majority of Episode 3, they're still your friend. But I'm willing to give these guys a break. They're basically just like any other version of the clone. They can use grapple points, but then again, any character with the gun can use grapple points. Hell, even Jedi can use grapple points if you have the Force Grapple Extra enabled. Alright, the disguised clones look like idiots, I'm willing to admit. The reason they're above Episode 3 clones is because they look different. Really, that's the only reason. The Episode 3 clone is just white. These guys are in standard uniform from the neck down. From the neck up, a hood? A brown hood at that, and you can see their face. Count me in. Well, I'm still out since the Disarmed Trooper Extra still applies to them, sorry to say. These guys make their cameo in the Ruin of the Jedi level. They're dinky as hell, man. Remember when I complained about there being 4 versions of the battle droid? Well, there are also 4 versions of the clone trooper. 5 versions if you count the Episode 2 clone and the disguised clone. And wow, this one's so much different. Look at that little symbol on his helmet. Really, they tried too hard to add characters in some instances, and these clones are great examples. Having parentheses after the name of character to distinguish what type they are is common in LEGO games. I don't really have a problem with it. For example, Rebel Trooper with HOTH in parentheses after is fine since you need to make sure that it's a different character. I do, however, have a problem when there's a comma inside the parentheses, like in this case. I know it's nitpicky, but the character would have been fine if you just named it Clone Trooper with the Walker in parentheses. No one would have cared. This is just like Hunger Games Mockingjays' questionable punctuation in its titles. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who really cares about this issue, but I need to talk about something, right? This clone also suffers from the same problem as the Walker clone. I think my main problem with the comment in parentheses is that it makes the character's name way too long, and I have to shrink the name a lot in order for it to be able to fit in that little transition between segments. I chose the Swamp clone over the Walker clone because the Swamp clone has more going on. He's green and everything. The Walker clone just has a little stamp on his helmet and not much else. We're finally to the last clone on the list, unless you count the Stormtrooper characters, which you shouldn't. This is the Pilot clone. Frankly, I put this one above the others because he has a lot more going on regarding his armor. More than Swamp clone, and definitely more than the Walker and Standard clone. These guys don't show up anywhere at all, I don't think. But these guys in the actual movie did show up in the Battle over Coruscant, which makes sense. I'm pretty sure one of these guys die, right? This is the first of the Imperial characters. In case you've never played LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, there's a mechanic where only certain characters can get past doors using a panel. These said characters are Imperials. In the Death Star levels, you use this mechanic a lot, as you need to trick the camera on the panel into thinking that you're an Imperial as well. As you can imagine, it gets super frustrating, but that's not the point. The point is, this guy's little pistol and shooting stance is the only thing this guy has going for him. I mean, it doesn't look like he cares about shooting you. Probably one of the most iconic throwaway enemies. By throwaway, I mean they get killed a lot. The Stormtrooper, we all know them. They come in multitudes in the Death Star levels and they get really annoying. That is until you use the Disarmed Trooper extra. That extra is a blessing when it comes to the Death Star levels, especially in the Escape the Death Star. In case you don't know, the Escape the Death Star level recreates that part in the special edition where Han Solo runs after those stormtroopers and then runs into a room with literally hundreds of them. By the way, why would all of those stormtroopers be in one room in such close proximity? Also, before I end the segment, never double jump with any type of stormtrooper. They always fall on their face and take forever to get up. Of course, right after the Stormtrooper is the Sandtrooper. They aren't that different at all, it's just that the Sandtrooper has that backpack and orange shoulder cape or whatever that's called. The Sandtrooper makes me question the Stormtrooper's name. The Sand in Sandtrooper implies that its purpose is for desert environments, right? And the Snowtrooper implies that its purpose is for snowy environments, right? So what's the Stormtrooper for? Storms? I don't get it. The most logical name for Stormtroopers would be Star Troopers since they're mostly in the Death Star. I'm clever, right? The only problem is that it's too close to Death Star Troopers, but it wouldn't matter since the Death Star Troopers are dumb and not needed. I chose the Snowtrooper over the Sandtrooper and Stormtrooper because it looks the most different. I've seen enough Stormtroopers and Sandtroopers are just Stormtroopers with a few add-ons. Snowtroopers' helmets are unique and their armor actually makes sense for the climate it's in. Snowtrooper's armor is good camouflage. I don't know why most versions of the Stormtrooper is white. I mean, a Scout Trooper's armor being white doesn't make much sense for a place like Endor. Although I'm pretty sure I've seen some camo Scout Troopers, so I guess it's good. This is the last of the real Stormtrooper variants, the TIE Fighter Pilot. You know how I complain that most Stormtrooper variants are white when they shouldn't be? Yeah, well, the TIE Fighter Pilot puts that complaint to rest. This guy is all black. Just when you thought that you've seen them all, this guy comes out of the shadows and knocks your ass down. Well, not really. He's just like every other Stormtrooper in the game, just with black armor instead of white. A change in color on your uniform is all it takes to put you above the others, I guess. Those who are fans of this game knew this guy was coming. The best variant of the Stormtrooper in this game is one that doesn't exist in the actual Star Wars universe. He shouldn't even be in this game. He was in the secret plans level primarily, but also makes cameos in secret areas and other levels. I remember playing this game years ago and being thrown for a loop when the beach trooper came out of the smoking doorway. It was pretty funny when I was like 8 years old. Unfortunately though, he's just like every other stormtrooper other than the stunning beach bod. There are scenes taking place on a beach in Rogue One, right? Perfect opportunity to introduce those beach troopers. You remember that guy Darth Vader choked mercilessly at the beginning of A New Hope? That guy is this guy. His death wasn't different in this game. I mean, there wasn't an interrogation. Vader just walked by and choked him. You played this guy in the Secret Plans level, so you really develop a connection with this guy. You get to know his past and his 4 ex-wives, and when Vader kills him, it really sticks with you. You know, it just makes you hate Vader more, right? By the way, the whole getting known part wasn't real. Part of me thinks that was self-explanatory, but then again, you never know with the internet. The next 5 spots in this list are dedicated to Padme, so until number 73, bear with me. It's kind of strange because the only Padme that doesn't have parentheses behind her name is the one that you have to buy from the store. Usually it's the other way around. In any case, Padme in this game is straight up terrible. You can tell she used to be a queen because she shoots like a queen. I swear, a battle droid can probably shoot better than her. The only reason why the Padmes are so high on the list is because Natalie Portman is gosh darn attractive. There isn't really a point to this variant of Padme. I know TT Games were trying to be faithful to the source material by giving her a specialized outfit, but come on. You should have just called this version of Padme the one without parentheses behind it. If it were up to me, I would take out either this version of Padme or the variant I talked about in the last segment. Either one is fine. I guess TT Games was faithful to the source material in the sense that she gets like thousands of outfits. I should just call this the Padmazing Special or something like that. I don't know, I'm not really great with puns. I absolutely despise this variant of Padme because there literally is no point of this version being here. It's like the outfit I'm going to talk about next, just with 3 red lines on her back. That's it. The only reason why Claude Padme is above the others is only because her Geonosis outfit is like the hottest one she has worn in all of the prequel trilogy. If there was a Claude version of any other version of Padme, she would have been behind Gonk Droid, and I'm not even joking. At least she can dodge when she's shot at. She does this like little cartwheel thing. Alright guys, I know the developers wanted to be faithful to the movie, but come on. They should have just kept the Claude version out and kept the Geonosis version for the Jedi battle level. As I mentioned earlier, this Padme, in the movies at least, has the hottest outfit. She was too young in The Phantom Menace, and she was pregnant for most of Revenge of the Sith, so it just makes sense that she would be at her best in Attack of the Clones. By the way, I'm very disappointed that the pregnant Padme isn't a playable character in this game. She looked hilarious. Pregnant Padme could have and should have been in the place of Claude Padme. I'll be honest, I only put Queen Amidala above the other Padmes because she looks so ridiculous. Look at this, dude. Is she required to wear all that, or does she put all that crap on because she has all the makeup and does it because she can? This Padme is severely inferior to the Geonosis version because she can't dodge for the life of her. So why did I put her above the Geonosis version? I'm actually asking myself this question. I formed this list a long time ago, so I don't really remember my reasoning. Finally over with all the Padmes. Now we move on to a slightly more interesting character. Do you remember this guy? I sure do. He was Lando Calrissian's wingman. Lobot followed that guy everywhere. You may be wondering, why do I put Lobot above Padme, when Padme is super important to the prequels and arguably the original trilogy too, and Lobot doesn't even have a gun. He's the only character to headbutt someone as an attack too. Literally any bald guy could cosplay as him. Bruce Willis, Vin Diesel, hell even Larry David if he shaved off the hair on the sides of his head. Also, Lobot's tiptoeing animation? What is he doing there? Remember the Imperial officer from a little while back? Well, the Imperial shuttle pilot is basically the cooler, sleek black version of him. It's weird because the Imperial officer is like 13 spots behind the Imperial shuttle pilot. I guess it's because gray's bland, while black has always been cool. Imagine if Darth Vader's outfit was gray. That would be horrific, and no one would like him as much. Long story short, just wear black and everything will be alright. You'll get popularity points at school. Remember me saying that there are like 5 characters that can hover? Well, I lied. There are more. WATTO is one of those I forgot. How could I? He's the best hoverer in the game. Just kidding. He only technically hovers. When he goes over gaps, he doesn't hover over the gap. He still casually floats into the abyss and dies. Are you kidding me? That's not how hovering works. WATTO can go on indefinitely. Just don't try making him float over gaps. He doesn't have a gun either. He has one of those dinky little zappers. He's basically a Jawa that can go a bit faster but can't go through hatches. WATTO had the potential to be great, but they ruined it. I know what you're thinking. Why is Jar Jar so high? He's probably one of the most hated characters of any franchise ever.
My tongue is fatted. My tongue, radish. Radish is radish. My marriage.
His high jump. Gungans, along with a few other characters from LEGO Star Wars 1, have the ability to jump super high, which is pretty helpful seeing that half of the mini-kits in the first 3 episodes require the high jump to get it. Jar Jar is the only high jumper that can't fight though, so the chances are you're only playing him because you have to in the one story level he shows up in. One thing I hate about high jump is that in the original trilogy levels, they nerf the high jump big time. I know they did because the high jump wasn't in LEGO Star Wars 2, but still, high jumpers can only jump as high as other characters in the original trilogy levels. Haha, I know, the number, haha, 69, huh. But anyway, we're on to Commander Cody. He's the only clone you actually play in the story level, which is the General Grievous level, which is probably one of the shortest levels in the entire game. It's just one big boss fight. As we all know, the General Grievous and Obi-Wan fight scene involved pretty much exclusively those two, so in turn, Commander Cody is another filler character. I mentioned this back when I talked about R4P17. While Commander Cody did make a cameo in that scene in the movie, it was only for a split second when he picked up Obi-Wan's lightsaber when it fell. But Commander Cody wasn't involved with the fight. In this level though, Commander Cody just comes out of nowhere and is like, "Sup, dude?" And they're fighting together, I guess. But there's one thing that pisses me off about this guy. You know the Disarmed Trooper extra? It still applies to Commander Cody. That doesn't make sense at all because 1, he's a commander, not a trooper. It's in his name. And 2, he's a story character, so if you happen to have the Disarmed Trooper extra when you play story mode, which you shouldn't, you wouldn't be able to finish the level because you need Commander Cody's blaster for quite a few things in that level. Granted, you could just turn the extra off. But who doesn't like extras in LEGO games? Those are like, once you get them, you're like overpowered as hell, dude. Like, damn. The Geonosian is basically just an improved Watto. The Geonosian walks really slow on the ground but picks up the pace once you jump and make him fly. You may be asking, what makes him better than Watto? If you didn't already know by the footage on the screen, this guy has a blaster. What a legend. You fight a ton of these guys in the Droid Factory level. They aren't hard or anything, but they're hilarious when they stop flying and then try to make their way towards you by walking super slow. Not Gonk Droid slow, but still pretty slow. Another thing worth mentioning, I find it weird that every time you enter a new area in a level or switch characters with the Geonosian, the character actually occasionally switches from the standard blaster to the green sphere like shooting blaster thing. I guess they didn't want to make 2 different characters for the Geonosian only because of a change in weapon. Still pretty weird though. We all know why this guy's famous, and we all know why I put him high on the list.
It's a trap!
He looks really bad in the complete saga, I'm willing to admit, but I'm glad they changed his look for LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens. Well, they changed everyone's look in LEGO The Force Awakens. Mostly for the better, of course. LEGO The Force Awakens is just a better game in general, in my opinion, but I'll get to that in some other video. The point is, Akbar is high up on the list for his iconic line in Return of the Jedi. I'm glad he returned in The Force Awakens. Ah yes, one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars, Chewbacca. As much as I like Chewbacca, he isn't that great of a playable character in this game. He shows up in quite a few levels, mostly in levels from the original trilogy. He was shoehorned into the Defense of Kashyyyk level, but he was shoehorned in Revenge of the Sith too, so I guess it makes sense. The thing about Chewbacca is that he brings nothing new to the table. He doesn't have auto aim, and he can't dodge. When he's in close range, he'll rip enemies' arms off, so that's mighty different from pretty much every other character in this game besides this regular Wookiee character. He doesn't have any special abilities besides being able to use grapple points. What I'm getting at is, Chewbacca's great, but he's only in the levels because he was present during that specific scene in the films. You really wouldn't be playing as him as often unless you really like Chewbacca. Get ready guys, because the rest of this episode and a little bit of the next episode is going to be nothing but Leia. Remember when I talked about the battle droids a few episodes back and I said wait until I talk about Leia? It could be worse. Later in the list I have to talk about Princess Leia 7 times in a row. Why the hell are there 7 versions of Leia? Well, we're finally here. 7 Leias. 7! I thought Padme was bad. I'm starting the reign of Leia with the Boushh version. Hopefully I'm pronouncing Boushh right. If you don't know, the Boushh Leia was the version of Leia where she disguised herself to get into Jabba's palace to retrieve Han. I put the Boushh version behind the others because you barely even see it at all. The other versions of Leia are much more iconic in my opinion. Although I do like the Boushh helmet, but that's not part of the character, so. I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out the reason why this Leia is here. I think this version is the outfit in The Empire Strikes Back where Leia, Han, and Chewbacca were in that prison cell after Lando turned on them. I think? I'm not really sure at all. I think this is the version the character is based on. Actually, I'm sure this is the outfit she's in when she tells Han she loves him.
I love you.
I know.
You never play as this Leia in a level, in fact you buy her in the store. Regardless, this Leia acts like every other Leia and therefore is nothing special. I think I'm pretty fond of Leia's Endor outfit. Very camouflagey and works well for the environment she's in. You play as this version in the Speeder Showdown level. That level was okay in my opinion. It was a lot different from most other levels. They did a good job at mixing a character level and a ship level. The studs in that level specifically are huge compared to your character since you're constantly switching between the character and the speeder. Of course, the Endor speeders aren't on the ship roster for ship levels, which I don't know why. If Anakin's pod racer is on there, why can't the Endor speeder be on it? Anakin's pod racer looks ridiculous when you play ship levels that take place in space. Another Leia outfit I kind of like. The Hoth scenes in The Empire Strikes Back are among one of my favorite scenes in the Star Wars saga, specifically the Battle of Hoth. Leia was really watching from the sidelines in that battle, and Luke was like the only main character that really was actively participating. But Han and Chewie were busy trying to get the hell out of there, and Leia ended up joining them. I know I'm supposed to be talking about the character, but I kind of like how Luke's agenda was separate from the rest of the guys, and then at the end of the film, they kind of like their arcs kind of intertwined. Minus Han, of course. I mean, he was out of there. He was like literally out. Like he was on his way to Jabba's palace. This version of Leia is definitely one of the more unique ones. She traded out the buns for the more stylized hair. Bespin was a great setting for Star Wars. A city in the clouds is the epitome of sci-fi. I remember George Lucas saying in an interview, I'm not going to bother trying to find it, but I know he said that he wanted a new environment for every new planet they visited. One of said environments was a gas giant. That's right, BESPIN is a gas planet if you don't know that. That'd be like if we inhabited Jupiter, and if Jupiter didn't have constant hurricane-esque winds. Also, if we were able to breathe Jupiter's air. I mean, if we had all of those, then that's what it would be like. I'm sorry for barely talking about Leia in this segment, but I'm running out of things to say, guys. I'm getting a little sick of talking about Leia. What a great way to start another episode of this series. Come on, we all know why this Leia is one of the highest. I don't even need to explain. It's because of her eyes. Carrie Fisher has great eyes, and it really shows with this outfit. It's all I look at when I see her. Of course, her eyes are barely detailed in this game since she's in Lego form. It's kind of disappointing if you ask me. The eyes are the only thing anyone would look at with this outfit in general. They'd stare at those eyes even. Jabba made the right decision choosing her as his slave. Well, I guess she was the only person in the palace that could have been the slave. Everyone else was like revolting. Unless Jabba wanted blind Han to be a slave, I think Leia would be the only person that really fit. Also, Slave Leia does a dance when you hold down the special ability button. Of course, I put the classic Leia as the best one, mostly because of the iconic buns. Now, there's literally nothing to say. I am stretching it to the max because there was like 7 other Leias. So I'm going to be talking about the new Death Star set coming out in October. Now, I have no idea when this episode is coming out. Hopefully it'll be out sometime before the set release. But if not, whatever, it's out. I'm still going to be talking about it. But I just want to talk about it since this version of Leia is included in the set, the classic Leia. The Leia in the Death Star set looks a lot better than what you see in the complete Saga game, because the Leia in the set has had about 10 years of improvements, when the Leia in this game is the Leia they had for a long time. But the Death Star is $500. $500. I'd have to work like 50 hours at my job, even more than that because of taxes. The Death Star came out in 2008 and it was only $400. The Death Stars look almost the exact same other than the updated minifigures. Long story short, I should have gotten the old Death Star when I had the chance. Captain Tarpals is basically a Jar Jar Binks that can fight. Nothing more to it. Tarpals just makes Jar Jar useless, which makes sense because Jar Jar is useless in the movies regardless. Captain Tarpals has a light blue outfit in this game, but I find that Lego can't decide on a color for this guy. His physical figure in an actual Lego set has more purple than blue. Tarpals actually dies by the hand of Grievous in the Clone Wars. The funny thing is that Grievous, like Tarpals, is also a high jumper. Just a little bit of information for you to take home. I also want to mention that Tarpals actually has one of the best fighting animations in the entire game. It actually looks pretty cool and different from all of the generic Jedi fighting styles. The Super Battle Droid is so high up because they are a lot cooler looking than most other droids in this game. I mean, firstly, he has Super in his name, so you know that he must be a leg up from the other battle droids. Secondly, his design purposely makes him look like one of those buff guys at the gym. He's even a lot slower than most other characters, like buff guys at the gym. There you go. Thirdly, his gray color makes him look more menacing than the standard battle droid. And that's pretty much it. I like the game mechanic in LEGO Star Wars 3 that lets you pick up Super Battle Droids and use them against the enemy. Unfortunately, they don't have that in this game, but I mean, this game was the first LEGO licensed game, so I mean, of course, it makes sense that they improve with each one. So I mean, I don't know. Let's just move on. Jeez. This droid is my favorite, only because he has a force field around him. His rolling animation is okay, but it can be hard to control sometimes. His icon in this game is so stupid though, like you can't even tell it's him. It just looks like a bunch of lines and circles. At least in LEGO Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars, they put the entire body as the icon so it's easier to differentiate. All in all, this pretty much is the last battle droid on the list, and they're the best because they are a pain to kill in levels. Now we're on to the Blaster Luke Skywalkers. Notice how I said blaster. It's because, as we all know, Luke starts wielding a lightsaber towards the end of The Empire Strikes Back, so some Lukes have a blaster and some Lukes have a lightsaber. These next few Lukes are the blaster type. I chose Stormtrooper Luke as the worst Luke mainly because the Stormtrooper outfit lasts for one level. They somehow managed to change from their Stormtrooper suit to their regular clothes in the trash compactor in this game. It's hard to rank characters who are exactly the same other than the outfits because I really have no problem with this Luke. Luke has auto aim as well as dodge, so I'm not complaining. Plus blasters are helpful with some battles such as the boss fights with Jango and Boba Fett. Like when you have to use a lightsaber, it makes it infinitely more challenging, but with a gun you just shoot them and then they're down. I put this Luke above the Stormtrooper Luke because this is the Luke that force grabbed his lightsaber and defeated the Wampa. That was like one of my favorite scenes from The Empire Strikes Back. This Luke looks a lot different than the standard Hoth Rebel Trooper. I guess it would make sense because he needs to be more detailed since he's a main character. What pissed me off is that the Wampa scene isn't included in the game at all. They just gloss over the Wampa in the Tauntaun scene.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
The only thing they include that related to the Wampa is that he's an extra toggle character in one of the bonus levels. You see more of this scene in LEGO Indiana Jones than you do in this game, and I'm not even joking. Okay, if I ever make every character ranked for LEGO Indiana Jones, you guys will find out more about it, or you can Google it. I mean, I'm not gonna stop you from doing that. Next up is the pilot Luke Skywalker. Like the Rebel pilot, he looks like a prison inmate with a concussion. He doesn't even look like he knows what's going on. You might think you unlock him in the Hoth levels, you know, since he's in the battle with the pilot suit on, but nope, you unlock him in the Dagobah level. You only play him for like half the level too. It's kind of weird. Yes, he's in the pilot suit during some of the Dagobah scenes, but it's still weird to me. Oh well, this Luke is above the others because I like the orange colors. This is the last of the Blaster Luke Skywalkers. I put Tatooine Luke over the other Blaster Luke Skywalkers because, well, he's the OG Luke. This is the first time you see Luke. It's a legendary moment. Okay, I might be exaggerating, but this is like really my favorite of the Blaster Lukes. Granted, you barely play as this guy in the levels he shows up in, mostly because Ben Kenobi's also in the levels. Why would you play a character with a blaster when you can play as a Jedi? Come on now. What else to end a part to this series other than this gangster? Even though Tarkin died in A New Hope like a chump, this guy got a lot more credit in the expanded universe. I think this is the first time I'm talking about the expanded universe in this series, so in case you don't know, the expanded universe are all the books, games, and graphic novels that took place in the Star Wars universe. Basically anything that wasn't a TV show or film is in the expanded universe, and it was canon. That is until Disney bought it. Disney declared all expanded universe material non-canon, which can be good or bad. Good because it gives filmmakers of the new movies more leeway, and they don't have to worry about the inconsistencies between the expanded universe and the movie itself, but it also can be bad because things like the Old Republic didn't happen. But I personally favor Disney's choice, but some people favor the opposite. Whatever, the point is the books about Tarkin made him out to be a badass. Tarkin in this game isn't special, but he's still cooler than Blaster Luke. And I just realized that I talked about the expanded universe more than I talked about Tarkin. Just to stress the fact that Tarkin is a cool guy. So, good, yeah, cool. I did not recall this character in the movies until I searched him up. And actually, I don't recall a lot of things from The Phantom Menace, it turns out. I think the reason is that it's a forgettable movie. It would be forgotten if Star Wars wasn't plastered in front of it. I don't know, I only remember the pod race scene, the final duel between Darth Maul and the Jedi, and Jar Jar. Of course, who could forget that face? I chose Captain Panaka over the other blaster characters thus far because he was the first character you play with dodge and auto-aim. When I played him in the Escape from Naboo level, it was like a new revelation to me. He was so good compared to Queen Amidala, who is in the level with him at the time. Queen Amidala sucks, if you don't know already. I think I already expressed this in a part earlier to this. She's terrible. They shouldn't have bothered giving her a weapon. They should have just pulled a Chancellor Palpatine and made her run around without a blaster. Panaka looks like the Royal Guard though, just with a different skin tone and different colors on his uniform, so I really can't take him seriously. We're slowly making the transition into the characters you would want to play as in this game, which is a relief since I've spent so many episodes in the series bashing the useless characters. Really, it's getting old. Technically, the bad characters ended with the Blaster Lukes, but come on, why would you play as a Blaster Luke when you can play as a Jedi Luke? Anyway, I'm at the Landos now. There are only 2 versions of Lando in this game, which would make sense. He was only in 1.5 movies as a side character. The Palace Disguise is the less iconic version, so there you go. Lando also has auto dodge, which is great. And yeah. And of course, the other Lando is the one in his classic outfit. And although he stabbed Han and the gang in the back, I still like the guy for the most part. He makes up to him in Return of the Jedi anyway, so. Lando's going to show up in the Han Solo anthology film, right? I'd be surprised if he didn't, to be honest. They have history and fans want to know what that history is. I'm not sure if the Boba Fett film is still in the works, but if it is, I'm still a bit iffy about that. I'd much rather prefer an Obi-Wan solo film starring Ewan McGregor that takes place after the events of Order 66, but hey, that's just me. My main point in this segment is supposed to be that Lando is a pretty good character to play, like fairly good. And now, we're moving on to the Han Solos. Most of the rest of this episode is going to be about Han, so get ready for me running out of things to talk about. The Stormtrooper Han is just like the Stormtrooper Luke in the sense that they both are the least interesting versions of their respective characters. I have nothing against Stormtrooper Han, but he's just not as important compared to the other Hans. By the way, Han finally got a new hairpiece in the new LEGO Death Star, by the way, if you didn't know. For all the years that LEGO Star Wars existed, Han had the same generic brown hairpiece. They never changed it because they're either too lazy or they'd have to change the Han Solo and Carbonite mold to match the hairpiece. But they finally changed his hair to something more accurate. But I'm still not going to spend $500 on the new Death Star set only for the new Han though, because he'll probably show up in a cheaper set in a few months from now. The Endor Han Solo, like the Stormtrooper version, is in no way different from any other Han, so I'm going to get straight to the time filling. In this segment, I'm going to be talking about the prologue level in LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens. The prologue in that game are the Endor battles. The last 3 levels in LEGO The Complete Saga is the battle on Endor, the fight between Luke and Vader and Palpatine, and the destruction of the second Death Star. The prologue level in the LEGO Force Awakens takes all of those and puts it into one. Now I know the prologue level in the game only exists because they need to fill up levels, since this game technically only adapts one version, but the prologue level is a very good level, and it like pulled me into the game immediately. And just overall, to be honest, the levels in LEGO The Force Awakens are better than the complete saga, which, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't expect that from a game that stretches one movie out into like 10 levels plus like a bunch of about 6 bonus levels. So like, yeah, a lot of people wouldn't expect that, but I actually like the LEGO Force Awakens more than the complete saga. As I said with the others, the HOTH Han Solo isn't special compared to any other Han Solo. To be honest, there's one, maybe two versions of Han that stand out, and I'll get to them later in this episode. So you may be asking, how will I fill time this time? Well, I'm going to be talking about the HOTH UCS set. UCS stands for Ultimate Collector Series. You expect it to be cool, right? Wrong. The HOTH UCS set freaking sucks, dude. It seems like a giant playset made for kids. A real UCS set would probably be like the Slave 1 UCS set. That set is huge, but it's a little too big, to be honest. Like, it doesn't look like it's to scale with the minifigures. I mean, just look at it. It's too big. It's too big. Anyway, the HOTH UCS set should not be called UCS. It's not worthy. UCS is made for the older fans who want a challenge, but this just seems like a bunch of crap from different sets from over the years, and just compiled it into one and marked it as like $250. It's not. I'm not gonna buy it. I mean, I don't own a UCS set, but if I were to start, I would not start with this one. I just would not. Just would not. So this is the Han that was blind. They didn't portray him as being blind in this game, probably because it was too much work. They probably would add it in if they remade the game. They remake the game. Hint, cough, cough, cough. Remake, please. But this is also the Han that took Boba Fett out while blind. At least in this game, they made Boba Fett a boss fight before you take him out. But that death in the movie was the most anticlimactic death ever. To this day, I do not see why fanboys worship him. And yes, I know he survived by burning inside the Sarlacc or something to that extent, but that's the expanded universe, which if you don't know what that is, I talked about in the last part. I explained it there, so go check it out if you haven't. I mean, why would you be watching this if you can't? Whatever. And yes, George Lucas did say in an interview that FETT could have survived the Sarlacc in the official continuity, but when was the last time George Lucas did something good with Star Wars?
I may have gone too far in a few places.
The point is, Boba Fett shouldn't be worshipped because he was taken out by a blind Han Solo. Like, come on, guys. The second best Han Solo in this game, in my opinion, is the OG Han himself. This is the version you come across in the Mos Eisley spaceport level, which is the first time you see him ever. I'm assuming we've all seen The Force Awakens at this point, so I don't have to hide it. Han dies. There you go. I was unhappy about it, but I knew it was going to happen, mostly because Harrison Ford wanted his character to die in Return of the Jedi. Also because of people on the internet, but hey, you know, whatever. The scene between Kylo Ren and Han was Oscar worthy though. Like, I was not expecting that scene to be so touching. That sounds really dumb, but I mean it. And finally, the last Han Solo on this list. This is the only Han Solo you don't get in story mode. You have to buy him from the store. And as you can probably tell, this is the Han that saved Luke by stuffing him into a dead Tauntaun. I already expressed in the previous part that the Wampa scene and this scene were one of the most impactful Star Wars scenes to me personally, but no, I said that already, so I'm going to be talking about May 4th. What about May 4th? Well, that is Star Wars Day, and LEGO stores usually give an exclusive minifigure on that day. What does that have to do with Hooded Han? Well, he was an exclusive minifigure for one of those years. The exclusive minifigures have decreased in quality over the years. The Hooded Han was the minifigure for 2013's May 4th, and he was lackluster. But Darth Revan followed him as the 2014 May 4th minifigure. I unfortunately missed out on that, but they re-released him as a promotion for any Star Wars purchase for this year's Force Friday, so I have him now. He was the only reason why I even participated, to be honest. And now we move on to most of the bounty hunters, and we're gonna end it off with the bounty hunter, with one bounty hunter, so I can like leave you up on a cliffhanger. I mean, that wasn't initially planned. They just kind of fell into one place, but I'm going to count it as a cliffhanger, alright? And we're starting with the Zam Wessel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she was the one Jango Fett killed, right? I try my best to push most, if not all, memories of Attack of the Clones out of my head. Bounty hunters have their own special features that no other character can do. They have bombs. There are silver objects throughout the entire game, and you think to yourself, how do I take care of these? What do I do? And then you get to the Jabba's Palace level, and then you use bombs when Leia is in a bounty hunter disguise. So, and then you find out then. So yeah, bounty hunters are pretty useful. Zam Wessel is like the worst one. You know, some bounty hunters can do more than just shoot blasters and throw bombs. Like, about half of them can do more than shoot blasters and throw bombs, you know. But Zam Wessel is not one of those characters. She's a throwaway character. I mean, she died. She freaking died in the first act of Attack of the Clones. If that's not a throwaway character, I don't know what is. So, needless to say, I don't really care for her. I don't think anyone did. She's very lame, and I need to end the video right here because I am tired. I am recording this at like 11 o'clock at night. Okay? Okay, good. We're going to be starting off this episode with perhaps one of the most controversial Star Wars characters of all time, which is Greedo. And when I say controversial, I'm of course referring to the whole who shot first dilemma. Mostly everyone says that Han shot first because that's how it originally was, but there's one man who disagrees, and that man is George Lucas. Of course, George Lucas. I think that badly editing Han's head and making it look like he dodged, it was one of the worst edits of the special editions, alongside Jedi Rocks and that scene with Han and CGI Jabba. You guys remember that? It was terrible. We haven't forgotten your sins, George. We remember.
Jabba, you're a wonderful human being.
Anyway, Greedo is basically just like Zam Wessel. I forgot to mention that bounty hunters can use grapple points, but basically any character with a gun can use grapple points, so it's kind of a moot point, I guess. Greedo is above Zam Wessel because he's just more memorable, I guess. I mean, Zam and Greedo are both throwaway characters, as I mentioned, so whatever. Does anyone really care about Bossk? I mean, he's a filthy reptilian, the very menaces that are contaminating the American government. Well, I guess he was called on by Darth Vader to complete a task, so that's gotta count for something. Speaking of transitions, which I hope is how you pronounce it, and also it's Bossk's species, there's a certain transition from an old Star Wars comic that I want to talk about. I think his name is Slisk. It's weird since there's no vowels except for the Y's, and he's a minor character of what I want to talk about. To be honest, I just want to talk about my favorite Star Wars comic, and this comic is Knights of the Old Republic. And no, it's not the game, it's the comic book series, and it follows a young Jedi named Zane Carrick who is framed for killing his fellow Padawans when in reality it was his master. It's pretty messed up, but it's a good read. I definitely recommend it to anyone who likes Star Wars. If you haven't really heard of it before now. It might be a bit hard to find original issues of the comic since this was before Disney bought it, but it was reprinted into one of those Epic collection that Marvel publishes. It's the Old Republic Epic collection, just saying in case you're wondering. Also, I forgot to say, but bounty hunters have a specialized panel for them, which makes them even more useful. It's kind of an exclusive thing, if I do say so myself. Next up is Dengar, and he's the last standard bounty hunter. All bounty hunters after this point can do something beyond a blaster, bomb, and bounty hunter panel. Why is Dengar ahead of all the other bounty hunters thus far? Well, I just like him the most. That's really it. I do like his design in this game more than any other physical version of Dengar today. They did update his minifigure design in later years, but to be honest, I like this design the most, even though it's the least accurate. Dengar has his whole face exposed, but in this game it's just his eyes. I think I like this version more because when I was a kid I thought Dengar was a space ninja. Space ninjas in Star Wars would look a lot better than space pirates, which Dengar actually looks like. And now we're moving on to the bounty hunters with more of a purpose. Remember way back in part 2 or 3 when I said that C-3PO and R2-D2 would be useless because of the characters that would be way ahead of them in the list? Fortunately, there are characters way up on the list that once you buy them in the store, they make the 2 protocol droids basically pointless. Well, Forlom and the character after this are those 2 characters. Forlom can't build though, but that's really his only downside. Basically, I think Forlom is an agile C-3PO with a giant blaster. That's basically what he is. Protocol droids are complete trash compared to these guys. Forlom will pretty much blast him out of the water because, get it? Because Forlom has a blaster? Get it? No, I'm good with jokes. Here's the other droid bounty hunter, IG-88. I like IG-88 more than Forlom because he just looks cooler. Really, that's the only reason. He has the same abilities as Forlom, but I think IG-88 is just really cool. Okay. IG-88 is the last bounty hunter for now. There are other bounty hunters on the list, but they're way ahead of these bounty hunters, and I'll tell you why when I get to them. But for now, indulge in IG-88's greatness. He doesn't have a sniper rifle like he does in most things I see him in though, so that's kind of weird, but other than that, it's pretty cool. Ah yes, these little buggers. They only showed up as enemies in 1 level in the entire game, and they were pretty much a pain. Well, they're a pain if you play as Luke. They showed up in the Jedi Destiny level, you know, the level where Luke and Darth Vader fight Palpatine. The guards pop out occasionally. They aren't hard if you just force choke them to death as Vader, but other than that, they can be kind of a pain. They block your attacks and stuff, and that's like the worst. The Imperial guards are basically just Jedi without the Force abilities. But there's one thing that pisses me off beyond belief about these guys. Remember when I complained about the Disarm Trooper extra being outrageous at times? Well, this is by far the best example of this BS. Why does the Disarm Trooper extra apply to Imperial guards? They don't even have guns. I know they work for the Empire and all that, but why don't you just disarm Vader while you're at it? By the way, who are these Royal Guards? My best guess is that they're stormtroopers and they were just so good at their jobs. They were promoted to stand out in front of the Emperor's throne room 99% of the time doing nothing. And they replaced their blasters with giant spears. Now we finally move on to the Jedi in this game. The Jedi will take up a lot of the rest of the series in general, and I'm going to be talking about Jedi up until number 13. There will be a few episodes of just Jedi. So I'll start with Obi-Wan Kenobi from episode 1. If you haven't noticed, 90% of the footage I use for these videos has this very Obi-Wan as the second character. If you ever wonder why, it's because he's the second default character. Whenever you enter the game, you always start off as Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, because they're the first two characters you play as. So as you can imagine, I get bored with those two characters since I always start off as them. Well, none of the Jedi are fun to play as because 95% of them are all the same. There are a few different because of like different jumping animation or something. The point is, this Obi-Wan Kenobi isn't very special. Neither are any, really. I chose this Luke as the second worst Jedi because he only shows up in one level, and his design isn't that great. I use the term worst loosely since, as I said, most Jedi are the same other than the design. Endor Luke is no exception, except that his design isn't just up to par, I guess. I think it's either the cape or helmet that's throwing me off. I like his green lightsaber though. You don't see that often. Well, green is like the second most common lightsaber color, but you know how it is. My favorite lightsaber color is actually yellow. Yellow lightsabers were one of those things that started off in the expanded universe. I like it because it's the color for Jedi Sentinels, as they call them. Yes, this is the version of Luke that had Yoda on his back. You played as him during the Dagobah level, as you probably guessed based on the name. I like the fact that the developers actually implemented the Yoda on back aspect. I've never played this game co-op, really, so I have to wonder, what does the person playing Yoda do in 2-player? Since part of the level requires Yoda on Luke's back in order for Luke to use the Force ability, does the person playing Yoda just sit there while Luke does all the work? Well, I guess it doesn't really matter, since soon after that Luke learns the Force ability without having to have Yoda on his back. Dagobah Luke's design is pretty good for an early LEGO game, so that's why he's above Endor Luke. Why is Padawan Anakin the worst version of Anakin? Well, it's the version from episode 2. Do I really need to explain more? I already expressed how much I despise that movie.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Not like here.
It was just so bad.
Here everything is soft and smooth.
Padawan Anakin is playable in 3 levels, and these levels are the Droid Factory, Jedi Battle, and Count Dooku. Can I just say how unoriginal those level names are? Some of the levels in this game are kind of creative, like Jedi Destiny. I don't know, it might be a nitpick, but levels should have a name that'll make you remember what the level is about. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Yeah, it's just me. Let's start off with some Luke. There are a ton of versions of Luke in this game, which would make sense since he is a main character. I'm glad they switched the systems for the same character in different outfits in later LEGO games though. In the later games, they just have the same character token in one place and alternate between all of the versions of the specific character. Like, for example, in LEGO Marvel, there are many versions of Iron Man. Instead of having every version of Iron Man all over the place in the roster, like it would be in LEGO Star Wars, he instead has one token dedicated to him, and then it kind of like alternates. Anyway, this Luke is above the other Jedi so far because I like his outfit. It's basically a beige prison jumpsuit, but I don't know, I like it, I guess. Now, if you've been paying attention to this series closely, you'll remember that in the last part, I put episode 1 Obi-Wan Kenobi as the worst Jedi because you always start out as him. Qui-Gon is in the same boat, as in you'll always start out with him as the character you play. So you may ask, Wouldn't Qui-Gon be right by Phantom Menace Obi-Wan on this list by that logic? Well, the answer is no, for two reasons. One, it's Liam Neeson, and you can't... It's Liam Neeson, dude. Come on now. Two, Qui-Gon is the first player character, meaning that you'll most likely switch out as him when you enter a free play level. In single player, you don't control who the second player becomes, so the second player is almost always Obi-Wan Kenobi from episode 1. That being said, I'm not nearly as tired with Qui-Gon than I am with the pubescent Obi-Wan over there, you know. This is the last Luke in the entire series, so say your farewells now. The Jedi Luke is the best Luke because, well, he's a Jedi. All of his obstacles in A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back led to this. The only complaint I really have about this character is the cape. It's just not right. Take that out and we're good. The design is pretty simple, but it works well for Jedi Luke. You know what pissed me off? In LEGO The Force Awakens game, Episode 7 Luke isn't playable. Why though? There are more variations of Luke from the original trilogy available in DLC, but Episode 6 Luke is the only playable Luke in the base game. Like, come on now. And after the Jedi Luke, we have the Jedi version of his father, Anakin. I like this Anakin for the same reason I like Jedi Luke. The simple but sleek design really adds to this character. You only play this character in 2 levels, one being the Darth Vader level, where it's him versus Obi-Wan. That level was weird. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the more fun levels in the game, but instead of fighting, it's basically them just avoiding death by working together, and then fighting for a brief moment at the end. But Revenge of the Sith was my favorite of the prequel trilogy. To be fair, though, everyone's favorite was Revenge of the Sith, because there's no way that movie could be worse than the previous 2 Star Wars film, you know, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
I don't like sand.
It still had faults though, like how Anakin went from regular old Jedi to full-fledged Sith in a matter of 15 minutes. Like, jeez, George, learn to have some good pacing. Come on now. Here's the next Obi-Wan, and this is the version from Episode 3. The Episode 3 Obi-Wan is pretty much my favorite Obi-Wan from the Star Wars saga, both design-wise and character-wise. He was the only guy keeping Revenge of the Sith together, even though it still fell apart toward the end. But that's not the point. I really hope they make an Obi-Wan spin-off starring Ewan McGregor that takes place after Episode 3, but before Episode 4. I know I already said this in the previous part, but I would really prefer an Obi-Wan film over a Boba Fett one. Like, really. I think I heard somewhere that the Boba Fett movie was cancelled. So, I mean, that's great. That's great, don't get me wrong. Just like that kind of sudden. I just want to say one thing though. Who thought it was a good idea to give Episode 3 Obi-Wan those legs? They're totally out of place. They don't even look good, to be honest. I know I just said that the Episode 3 Obi-Wan was my favorite Obi-Wan, but that was just regarding the movies. In LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, however, I like this version more. Mostly because of the design, though. I just can't get behind those bright orange pants from the Episode 3 Obi-Wan. At least the Episode 2 Obi-Wan has legs that match the torso. Also, I just want to say one thing before I end the segment. Why is this Obi-Wan named Jedi Master when it should be Episode 2? I only say that since Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan is named Episode 3, so... Like, come on, be consistent, guys. God. Look, I'm a sucker for the original trilogy, alright? I think most, if not every fan of Star Wars is. That's why Ben Kenobi is my favorite of the living Obi-Wans, even though I like Ewan McGregor's Kenobi better. I guess it's because I played LEGO Star Wars 2 before the complete saga, so most of my childhood memories of LEGO Star Wars came from the original trilogy adaptation. Also, apparently Alec Guinness hated playing Obi-Wan? Why though? That role pretty much jump-started his career, so That's kind of a bummer. I never really found Luminara to be that cool until I saw the Clone Wars. Say what you want about that show, but when Disney bought Star Wars, the Clone Wars kept some cool stuff from the expanded universe in canon, such as Darth Bane. That scene in the Clone Wars was pretty cool, gotta admit.
And know why I am not forgotten.
Created the rule of two. You did.
Luminara in live action looks so creepy. I cannot fathom, like, I do not like looking at her. I mean, look at the picture they show right when you go to her Wikipedia page. It's something about that picture's not right, dude. Just saying. She looks a lot better in animation and in Lego form, obviously. I think Ayla Secura is pretty cool. She died like a chump in Revenge of the Sith, though. At least other Jedi put up a fight. She just took a blast to the back, and then her fall looks so fake. It actually made me cringe. Also, the clones could have stopped after a few blasts. The clones didn't. They didn't stop. They kept on going. Kept on going. Anyway, I like Twi'leks, and just because they're pretty cool looking, so that's why Ayla Secura is above the others so far. Really, that's the only reason. Like I said, all Jedi are the same in this game, other than a few exceptions. The only thing I don't like about Ayla Secura is that her head tails kind of stick out, and they're distracting. Other than that, she's just your average Joe Jedi. I'm surprised Mace Windu isn't a playable character in any story levels. I know he wasn't that big of a character, but it's Samuel L. Jackson. He has to be pandered to because he's Samuel L. Jackson. But the only reason why the purple lightsaber exists is because Sam Jackson personally requested it to George Lucas. I'm not even kidding. There's a reason why you never see another Jedi with a purple lightsaber. Anyway, remember when I said that all Jedi are the same except for a few? Well, Mace Windu is one of those exceptions, but barely. He has a different jump animation. His double jump looks like he's ascending into heaven. Yep, can't make this up, kids. Of course, the standard Mace Windu comes before the Episode 3 version. Really, I don't like the parentheses after a name in LEGO games. I know it's necessary so you can distinguish what version of a character it is, but it's still very distracting. That's pretty much the reason why Mace Windu without parentheses comes before the Episode 3 version. I know it's petty, but there's really no other way to rank the Mace Windus other than design. But ranking character by design has been done a bunch of times already in this list, so you know. Anyway, I remember Mace Windu from Battlefront 2. He was like the first Jedi you got to play as. I've never felt so much power in a game. Like, I'm literally jumping 50 feet in the air and landing on top of the battle droid. I mean, that's pretty cool. Okay, at this point, I'm just ranking Jedi by how cool they look. Next is Kit Fisto. From my understanding, a lot of people like Kit Fisto. I mean, there's a page on Facebook dedicated to Kit Fisto memes, so I think he's liked to an extent. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't got a Kit Fisto minifigure in a long time. I mean, come on, LEGO. It's time to reintroduce him. Like, you could have put him in the... You could have put him in the Turbo Tank LEGO set that just came out alongside Luminara instead of, what's his name, Quinlan Voss or something. I don't know. That's just... Or you could keep Quinlan Voss in there and then just add in Kit Fisto. There's only like... I don't even know. There's only like 6 minifigures in that $110 set. And 2 of them are battle droids. I mean, come on, you could have added in another Jedi and... another clone just to even it out, you know. I remember playing as Kit Fisto in a Clone Wars game. I forgot what it was. I'm pretty sure it was Republic Heroes, but it like my neighbor and I always played it on Xbox 360, and it was very fun. but apparently people on Steam don't agree with me. Also, one more thing. Why does Kit Fisto in this game look like Whoopi Goldberg? Like, God. Like I said, I'm ranking by how cool these Jedi are. This time it's Ki-Adi-Mundi. There's only been one official version of Ki-Adi-Mundi in physical Lego, and it was the Clone Wars style minifigures. Ah, they're so gross. They are actually so gross. Like, look at those eyes. Jesus. I can't believe this guy goes for $20 online if you want to get him now. Like, that. You think he'd be worth more, seeing that there's only one version of him and it's discontinued. It's from a discontinued set. So, also while browsing, I found that you can buy both Ki-Adi-Mundi and Watto the Hutt for only $25 on eBay. Here's a little personal anecdote for you. When I went to Grand Rapids Comic Con a few months back, a booth was trying to sell Watto the Hutt for $25. He was like, a lot of people wanted him. Who the hell would buy a Lego booger with eyes for 25 bucks? It's disgusting. I might as well buy it on eBay because at least Ki-Adi-Mundi is included. Anyway, Ki-Adi-Mundi is the second Jedi you played in Battlefront 2. I believe it was like the Battle of Megiddo. Fun fact, the Battle of Megiddo was the longest battle in the Clone Wars, lasting for over 2 years. Also, it was the battle Ki-Adi-Mundi died in. Ironically, he was killed by clones after Order 66 took place. Shaak Ti isn't really that important of a character at all. She has like this motherly vibe about her though. I can't explain it, but she does. Fun fact, in a deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith, General Grievous kills Shaak Ti in front of Anakin and Obi-Wan. You can probably find it either on YouTube or Dailymotion. But who cares about Dailymotion? Am I right, ladies? But the scene was cut, so she technically didn't die in canon. But she did die again in The Force Unleashed.
You could be so much more.
You will never convince me to betray my master.
Poor boy. The Sith always betray one another. But I'm sure you'll learn that soon enough.
But guess what? The Force Unleashed isn't canon anymore either, so she's still alive since they didn't show her death in Revenge of the Sith since her scene was cut out. So she's still alive, we can assume. But they might as well kill her in official canon just to get over with. I mean, they obviously want her dead if they already killed her twice, right? By the way, Shaak Ti looks terrible in The Force Unleashed. I'm just saying that now.
I look forward to adding your lightsabers to my collection.
No.
This is not a good time to argue, Master.
Might I recommend?
Far too many of them for that.
Oh, yes, all right.
Plo Koon is actually my favorite canon Jedi. My favorite Jedi of all time goes to Zane Carrick from the Knights of the Old Republic comic run, but that's not canon, so no. Like I said, if I were to decide like what movie, like one Star Wars movie, and I got to choose what it's about Zane Carrick and his crew on The Last Resort. That's like that's pretty much A- movie material right there. It's a solid. It'd make for a solid Star Wars movie. Anyway, back to Plo Koon. Plo Koon strikes me that like he's a cool guy, even though he's kind of a dick in the Clone Wars, I will admit.
Not very subtle.
Well, I was being subtle.
Interesting result.
I don't like his design in the game, however. He kind of looks like a dying elephant on life support. I obviously like the version of Plo Koon from Lego Star Wars 3. But Plo Koon's head in that game seems too like thin or skinny. His ears don't protrude far enough. You can't win with Plo Koon. It's either he looks like a dying elephant or he looks like some kind of like weird little blah thing, you know? Like the reason why I like Plo Koon is because he was super cool in Clone Wars despite being like a dick. But like I want to be him. He probably gets all the ladies. with that like old man voice of his. It's pretty cool. Okay, I'll just say this now. I won't be including any custom characters in any future series. By the way, I do plan to do every character ranked for more LEGO and maybe even non-LEGO games, but custom characters won't be included. I thought this was a good idea when I constructed this list almost a year ago, but I can't find any custom character icons online. That's why you saw a question mark instead of an icon during the intro to this segment. If anyone wanted to grab icons for me from the game code or however the hell that works, please go ahead. I can't find any, and I mean none of the icons for the characters in later LEGO games on the LEGO Games wiki, which will be a problem if I plan to do more of these. So consider this a cry for help. If you are able to, please put icons of characters from LEGO games on the LEGO wiki, or send them to me over Steam on my YouTube page, since that's really the only way to contact me at the moment. Not pictures of the characters, the actual icons that are shown in the character selection screen, and please make them PNGs that have transparent backgrounds. Please. This is my longest segment ever, and I still haven't even gotten to the character at hand. My first custom character is Rey, and I really don't have a clue on what to make into a character, so I made Rey. Makes sense, right? Good. Yeah, she's pretty cool, sure. I spent a majority of the last segment talking about how later LEGO games have no good icons that I can find on the internet, so I'm going to talk about the actual abilities of the custom characters. Custom characters are the definition of overpowered. They have force abilities, duh. They can use grapple points depending on the weapon you give them. But like, that doesn't seem that bad, though, right? They also have bounty hunter bombs. And lightning. To be fair, lightning is just force choke, but cooler looking. In addition to that, they can open any kind of panel. Droid, Imperial, bounty hunter, doesn't matter. I tried to find a Star Wars character that had all of these abilities, but I couldn't find one, so I just settled with Rey and Kylo Ren from The Force Awakens. I'll just say it right here, folks. Yoda isn't really a good character to play as. To be honest, I'd choose any Jedi character over him. So why is he ahead of the other Jedi? Well, because he's the most different. As I said, most Jedi in this game are the same except for a few exceptions. Yoda differs more than any other Jedi. Granted, he's really slow when he's without a lightsaber, but once he takes that lightsaber out, he goes slightly faster. Not much faster, just a little bit. Yoda with his lightsaber out, he looks mad. Like, he is out to get something. Like, it's just the way he walks. He's out to kill. I will say though, when Yoda takes a swing with his lightsaber, it's probably the coolest attack out of any character in this game. He just goes all in. Remember when I vaguely talked about high jumpers such as Jar Jar Binks and Captain Tarpals? Well, now they come back into play. Kind of. Grievous bodyguards makes Jar Jar and Tarpals pretty obsolete. Jar Jar can't attack to begin with, and Tarpals is also a Gungan, so that's an automatic no-no. Grievous Bodyguard is not only a high jumper, but he has a cool attack animation. Like, look at it, he goes so fast, it's basically a standard shield. I think I mentioned this with the other high jumpers, but the high jump ability itself doesn't work in levels from episode 4, 5, and 6. I don't know why, it's kind of douchey that they nerf the high jumper's ability. In fact, that makes Jar Jar completely useless, seeing that he can't attack to begin with, but, you know, whatever. Now we get into the Sith. If you haven't ever played this game, which I don't know why you're hesitating if you haven't, but there's a specific game mechanic that pertains to strictly Sith and Sith alone. That is the Dark Force ability. It's basically the standard Force ability, but with the red sparkles. It indicates that only Sith can do it. Sith can do both dark side powers and regular Jedi ability, so I think LEGO's saying that the bad guys are more capable. That isn't really a good message for kids, LEGO. Get it together. Anyway, in the background footage you see, I have the dark side extra turned on, so even the Jedi can use Sith abilities, but normally they can't. Anyway, I chose Darth Maul as number 11. His attack animation is cool, and his double lightsaber looks cool too, but he was just a bad villain. I mean, in the EU, at least. Like, Uncle Owen killed him in the EU. I'm not even... Darth Maul, the guy who would not die in the official canon, was killed by Uncle Owen himself. But yeah, as I was saying, Maul won't die. He just won't die. He was in the Clone Wars and now he's in Rebels. We know he's gonna die eventually. It's just a matter of time. Well, we're finally here. The finale. It's been quite a ride with my totally random upload schedule. But yeah. In case you're wondering, I don't intend on ever developing an upload schedule for every character rank nor my Game Grumps compilations. I just hate being limited to a deadline. I'll make a video whenever I goddamn want to. Anyway, I'm starting with Darth Vader for the finale for number 10. As much as I enjoy Darth Vader, he's practically Darth Maul without the double lightsaber and the epic flips and stuff. Sorry to say. He's the only Sith you get to play as in story mode, and you go through the whole game wondering, how do I interact with red sparkling stuff? And then you get to Jedi Destiny and you find out. It's pretty nifty. Just a side note, never play as Luke in Jedi Destiny. Always play as Vader, because Vader has Force Choke. Force Choke makes taking out the Royal Guards 3 times as easy. With Luke, it's pretty difficult, but enough with that. Let's talk about Vader in Rogue One. It's actually pretty good timing that the Vader segment came after Rogue One, because now I can talk about his role in it. Rogue One spoilers ahead, but honestly you're a loser if you haven't seen it yet, at this point. First, that final Vader scene was probably the best scene in the movie, hands down. Honestly, if you had a gripe with that scene in the slightest, you need to check your aspirations. Speaking of that, the other Vader scene on Mustafar is pretty debatable. You all know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how the Mustafar scene is debatable. That's right. The choke pun. God, it was so terrible. There were no redeeming factors about that scene as a whole because of that one pun at the end. Sure, I might be overreacting, but I hated it. It was so out of character. Before someone says, "Oh, but he said like stuff like that in the original trilogy," I politely disagree. If there was a line of dialogue that was even remotely close to that, like the apology accepted line from Empire Strikes Back,
Apology accepted, Captain Nida.
it's not as cringy as the choke pun. At least the apology accepted fit into the dialogue in the scene. The choke pun was just out of nowhere, and it was like Vader's equivalent of just a goof that he decided to add on to the end of the conversation because he wants the last word or something like that. Like, honestly, I'd prefer it if he just like if he like stayed silent and then he choked him. Like that would have been like more Vader-like in my opinion. Count Dooku is one of 2 characters that have the lightning ability. I talked about lightning briefly in the last part when talking about the custom characters. If you're wondering why the custom characters aren't number 1 and 2 on the list because of how they have almost every ability in the game, well, it's for that reason. I don't like playing custom characters in any LEGO game, to be honest. Sure, I like customizing them, but I'm not going to actually play them, you know. Anyway, back to Dooku. I think Dooku's pretty cool. Too bad he died like an absolute chump.
Do it.
It's kind of a shame because Christopher Lee's pretty baller. At least he got his time to shine at the end of Attack of the Clones. Unfortunately for him, his badass spotlight was in the worst movie in the franchise. But what can you do, right? The Dooku fight on Geonosis in LEGO Star Wars was pretty short. A lot of LEGOs in Star Wars in LEGO Star Wars 1 were pretty short compared to LEGO Star Wars 2. A good example of this is the Battle over Coruscant level. It was just one big area and it basically took you through the level for you. You could have gotten all collectibles in that level in story mode if you wanted. I mean, that's what I did. The majority of the prequel levels were only like a few areas long. You could probably play through the prequels in an hour and a half max in LEGO Star Wars. At least the original trilogy levels are a little longer. I'm glad Count Dooku's LEGO design was updated a few years ago. If any Star Wars character needed a LEGO makeover, it was Count Dooku. I own the newer Dooku, and he has the same face as Lego Saruman, which I guess would make sense because both of the characters were played by Christopher Lee, but it still makes me think that LEGO is just being lazy. Also, one more thing, look at Dooku's lightsaber. His curved hilt is like a staple of his character, right? His lightsaber in this game is barely curved. It's only curved like on the end, like he accidentally dropped it and like bent it. Like how you drop your phone and then it like cracks, but if he like drops his lightsaber, it bends, and he's like, "Oh crap, there goes my lightsaber." Like, and he doesn't have the money to buy another one because he spends all the money on like separatist ships and like that stupid solar or whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about, the solar thing that he escaped on. Like he spent all his money on like renovating that ship, and then like he dropped his lightsaber and he's like, "Man, I'm gonna have to save like a couple months of work just to buy a new one." I could get it fixed, but that's pretty expensive. And alas, the only other character with lightning, the Emperor, is introduced. The Emperor's full name is Sheev Palpatine, so I will be calling him Sheev for the entire segment. You know, I really find it ironic that Chancellor Sheev is completely useless in this game, but Emperor Sheev is in the top 10. There's something poetic about that. Sheev Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith was a little offish.
Do it.
Of course he is the source of the do it memes you see on social media, but it seemed like Revenge of the Sith tried too hard to tie up loose ends between the prequels and the original trilogy, and Sheev Palpatine was pretty much the main reason for that. First, his little speech to Anakin that made Anakin go from slap happy Jedi to killing younglings as a full-fledged Sith in a matter of 15 minutes. Like, there's something wrong with that. Also, the reason for Sheev getting that gross-ass skin was stupid. Mace Windu reflecting the lightning on Sheev made him get all those wrinkles. What?
You have lost.
No. No. No.
You could have just said that the dark side of the Force withered Sheev for like the 20 years between Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi. There's a simple explanation. I mean, really. And it's believable. But no, George gotta go make it like super convoluted for us. I swear, why does George have to do this to us? Granted, Revenge of the Sith was like the best of the prequels, and I actually enjoyed it more than A New Hope. Actually, my personal rankings of the Star Wars films goes as the following from best to worst: Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, Phantom Menace, and finally the tragic Attack of the Clones. I know I might get some hate for having A New Hope at such a low rank, but it was just pretty cheesy in my personal opinion. I should probably end the segment on a Sheev note, right? Well, the best part about the Emperor Sheev in LEGO Star Wars is that they incorporate Sheev's epic spins in his attacks. It's as if TT Games did it for the meme. I'll just say this right now. Indiana Jones is pretty much just Han Solo, which would make sense since it's Harrison Ford. In fact, Indiana Jones in this game has Han Solo's face, even though the icon clearly has the stubble. But I like the continuity TT Games. His close-up attack is his whip though, which is kind of weird. LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventures was still in development at the time, and I'm glad they decided to not have his whip as his close-up attack. But they took away Indiana Jones' gun, which is sad. You may be wondering, if he's just like Han Solo, then why is he number 7 on the entire list? Well, it's because he's not supposed to he's not even supposed to be in the game. He's in a totally separate franchise, and they still put this guy in. I wanted to say that for the entire time I've been making this series. Like, seriously. I came up with that line back when I was making part 2, and I wanted to say, the way you unlock Indiana Jones was pretty easy. All you have to do is watch the trailer in the bonus room, and then he was unlocked in the store. A lot of people don't know this, but I was an Indiana Jones fan long before I was a fan of Star Wars. I have an Indiana Jones encyclopedia and everything. I had a fedora and a toy whip. I don't have a real whip. I'm not like that, guys. And above all, my first Lego set with skin-tone minifigures was an Indiana Jones set. And a lot of Lego fans in 2008 and 2009 will agree with me when I say that Lego Indiana Jones sets were some of the best. They should have released more Temple of Doom sets, to be honest. They only came out with 2 and I have 1. Maybe it was because of how dark Temple of Doom was. I don't know. Hopefully Lego will reboot it, the theme, by the time the next movie comes out. And yes, Indy 5 is in production. At least it is while Harrison Ford is still alive. Lego Indiana Jones: The Original Adventures is in my top 3 Lego games of all time for nostalgia alone. What I'm trying to say is, I'm very happy that Indiana Jones is in this game, because he's among my favorite characters ever. Harrison Ford may have been more iconic as Han Solo, but I always saw Indiana Jones as his character. It's genius. He isn't supposed to be in this game. There you go. After the legend that is Indiana Jones comes General Grievous. You know, General Grievous was my main while I hunted down mini-kits in the prequel trilogy levels. Turns out a lot of mini-kits in the Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith levels require high jumping. The mini-kits themselves aren't even cleverly placed. They're just in a high place above the ground in a corner of something, and you just get the mini-kit by jumping high. General Grievous is by far the best high jumping character in the game, but only because he has like 4 lightsabers and it's cool. Realistically, he's on par with a Grievous bodyguard, but if I were to complain about one thing with General Grievous, is that he's a bit hard to control at times. Like, for example, say you were in midair and all you wanted was to move to an area behind you. If you wanted to go back, you'd have to wait until you're entirely stopped on the ground. If you try to walk back, you could roll back, and Grievous's rolling can be cool and everything, but you always do it when you're not intending to. One time I accidentally rolled off a cliff. Other than that, yeah, Grievous is great. Of course he was nerfed big time in the New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi levels. As I explained in earlier parts, high jumpers no longer get the high jumping ability in the original trilogy levels, because high jumping wasn't a mechanic in the Lego Star Wars 2. I will say though, Lego greatly improved Grievous' design over the years. Grievous in this game, he doesn't look like Grievous. He looks like a skeleton that was owned by a Chernobyl mutant. I was thinking about painting a picture of Chernobyl mutations, but never mind. One Google search was all it took to swerve me away. Okay, I regret comparing Grievous to Chernobyl, but that's what he looks like compared to the newer design, and luckily the newer design is what you see in later Star Wars games, Lego Star Wars games. We all knew they were coming. That's right, the FETTs. And we all know why the FETTs are up this high. It's because of their hover ability. That's right, an ability we haven't seen since the Astromechs. One might argue that the Astromechs should have been ranked higher based on their hover ability alone, but I'll tell you what, IG-88 and Forlom render the Astromechs pointless in terms of droid panels, and the FETT family takes the Astromechs one last redeeming factor, which is the hovering. Why have a robot that can hover when you can have a guy with 2 space pistols that can hover? Checkmate, atheists. But let's get talking about Jango Fett himself. At least his death was at least somewhat admirable. It was admirable compared to his son, at least. Samuel L. Jackson killed him. What else do you need to die an honorable death? I still think it's kind of messed up that Boba Fett took his dad's decapitated body, took it out of the armor, and then repainted it. Do you realize how traumatizing that would be? Like, damn. Some say that Boba Fett's armor is in fact not Jango's because of how Jango had a dent on his helmet in a different place, or something like that. Like, both Jango Fett and Boba Fett had dents on their helmets, but like they're in different places. Which I'm going to say that Jango gained a dent in a helmet during the fight with Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones was the dent you see on Boba Fett's armor. And George Lucas, you know, he has like an obsession with explaining literally everything, including the dent on Boba Fett's armor, so he had to incorporate it into Attack of the Clones. And I think the matter of it being in the wrong place is just George being George as usual. Always count on George Lucas to explain things that don't need to be explained, but he'll still screw it up somehow. And I realize I've been throwing a lot of shade towards George Lucas in this series, in this part in particular, but that's because I really don't like what he did with the prequel trilogy. We all saw this coming. I practically inferred Boba Fett comes right after Jango Fett. I would combine these two characters if I could, but they are different. Barely different, but different for two reasons. The obvious one is that their color schemes are different. The second difference is that their weapon of choice. Jango Fett has 2 pistols, while Boba Fett has a straight up rocket launcher sized blaster. Like I said countless times before, I don't get why everyone likes Boba Fett so much, since he died like a chump. But I can see why some people's favorite character to play in this game is Boba Fett. It's the same thing with Jango Fett too. They're cool bounty hunter floaty guys. What else could you ask for? Nothing. The answer to that question is nothing. Like General Grievous, Boba Fett as a LEGO minifigure has improved greatly over the years. The version of Boba Fett you see in this game is the original version. I've never owned the original Boba Fett, the one you see in this game, but I do know that you can't even move his head around. It's like Michael Keaton Batman, but with Lego. That being said, I still wouldn't mind owning one, because just for like nostalgia's sake. I have the newer Boba Fett, and I like him more because of the amount of detail he has. Also, his helmet is more accurate, and you can actually move it around. I have a Mandalorian in blue armor as well from the Mandalorian Battle Pack from years ago. And I know that the Mandalorian isn't Jango Fett, but he might as well be. The armor looks very similar. Boba Fett was rumored to have his own solo movie in the works too, but I'm not sure if that's still a thing. I know I've said that in this series before, but as much as I say how much like Boba Fett is a chump, I do hope he plays some sort of role in the upcoming Han Solo movie. It's obvious that Han and Boba Fett had some kind of past. They had history before The Empire Strikes Back, and I want to see that story. I have no idea who should play Boba Fett, but maybe it's the borderline pedophile you see in that picture where it had Boba Fett unmasked. Like, that'd be pretty neat. You all saw this coming. That's the 3rd time in a row that I've said that about a character in this part, but this time I truly mean it. If you aren't familiar with this game, this is probably a delightful surprise for you. If you knew about this game before the series, then you should have known the Ghost would be in the top 3. They are practically invisible Jedi. That's right. When you're a ghost, no enemy can spot you. This is pretty useful when you're minikit hunting with no extras enabled. Trust me, I've been there. But in the footage you see, I have every unlockable extra enabled, so I guess it doesn't really matter in the end. But I put Yoda as the quote-unquote worst ghost because just like the regular living Yoda, he's super slow without a lightsaber, and he's only slightly faster with a lightsaber. I know I put Yoda as the top Jedi even though he was slow, so that, like, basically by that logic, shouldn't Yoda be number 1? But I put Yoda as the top Jedi because he was the most different. While most Jedi Masters are just like clones of each other, Yoda actually goes out and he's not a clone of Luminara, Kit Fisto, well, not Mace Windu, he has a different jumping ability, Kit Fisto, Shakti, etc, 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 all Obi-Wans, all of that crap. And like, I can put Ghost Yoda as the worst ghost because he is slow, because there's only 3 ghosts, there aren't freaking 20 of them. Also, it's my own goddamn list, so I can do what I want. Capiche? At least Ghost Yoda has a lightsaber. Speaking of lightsabers, why do Ghost Jedi need their lightsabers? It's not like anything is going to try to kill them, they're already dead. Also, since they have ghost lightsabers, does that mean their lightsabers also die when the owners die? And if lightsabers are dead, are they still usable? I mean, they have to be since Rey used Anakin's lightsaber in episode 7. Maybe it's a zombie lightsaber brought back to life through the Force? I don't know. Lightsabers are weird, man. Why do they have to be so confusing by crossing into the afterlife with their owners? Like, God. Enough lightsaber talk. My point is, Ghost Yoda is pretty baller along with the other ghosts coming up. I would usually prefer to play this ghost instead of the ghost that's number 1, but Ghost Anakin is like number 2 because of the controversy around Ghost Anakin. In case you don't know, the original Anakin was replaced by Hayden Christensen. Some favor the original Anakin, and others prefer Hayden, so, you know, of course it's George Lucas's fault. I mean, why does George Lucas like Hayden Christensen so much? If he takes the time to put Hayden over the original Anakin, like, why? I'm personally on the fence with it though. I mean, if Hayden was going to be the ghost, at least make it so he isn't looking at Luke like he wants to bone him. Like, seriously, look at the look on Anakin's face. Some prefer Hayden Christensen as the ghost because they say Anakin died when Darth Vader died. But if that's the case, then why did Darth Vader become good again at the Return of the Jedi? Did Anakin's soul get rejuvenated into Vader? And if so, does that mean Darth Vader Anakin is technically a zombie? I'm sorry for bringing up zombies again. It's just that's just how it is when you're discussing spooky subjects. You talk about one, and another one gets incorporated into the conversation. I don't know. Anyway, some say that Anakin's ghost should have been Vader when he died, meaning he'd still have like all those scars. To be honest, I'd hate being a ghost who's scarred all over like that. I'd try to kill myself even though I'm already dead. Logically, shouldn't ghosts be able to change their appearance whenever they want? I mean, they lived an entire life. They deserve to treat themselves by being able to metamorphosize. Yoda especially. I mean, that dude died at like 900 years old. He deserves to have a smoking hot beach bod in the afterlife. I mean, there'd be no one around to admire it other than 2 grown men, but hey, it's better than nothing. We're here, finally. Number 1. God, I'm so happy. The making of the series was very similar to 100% completing LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. Similar in what way, you may ask? Well, both tasks take a long time to accomplish, and it starts to get on your nerves by the end. Ghost Ben Kenobi is basically regular Ben Kenobi, except that he can't be spied by enemies. One thing that really bothered me about the ghost shot at the end of Return of the Jedi was that their ages aren't consistent. Really, they should have kept Hayden Christensen out of it, because then all 3 of the ghosts would be at the ages they died. It doesn't make sense for Ben and Yoda to be old, but then Anakin be young. Doesn't make sense. It shouldn't make sense to anyone, because I say so. Anyway, if we're talking about continuity, how did Obi-Wan age so goddamn fast? Between the Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, he went from a fairly young dude to an old man with arthritis in the matter of 20 years. That's a bit strange. I heard that he aged faster because he was like camping out on Tatooine, a desert planet with 2 suns. I'm not sure people say that implying that deserts make people look bad, or maybe that the two suns actually make you age faster, but if it's the latter, that's not how aging works. Saying you age faster because of two suns is like saying Superman's method of time travel by making the Earth spin the opposite way makes sense. Anyway, that does it for the series, and I'm thinking about uploading a supercut where I just put every part in the series side by side and release it as one big video. Honestly, I'm not sure if anyone would take the time to watch it, but I'm curious to see how long it'll turn out to be. And I'm going to be doing an every ship ranked of this game, so watch out for that. And that'll be like 3 parts long. It's not going to be a big thing. I just want to move on to the next LEGO game. But yeah, thanks for watching, and good night, or morning, or whatever time you're watching this at.